sailing off Florence. This is Council Coast Guard. Come in, please. Could you please give current coordinates? Over.
It's time to give Florence some TLC in preparation for sailing to Indonesia. There is maybe one place to haul out in the whole of Indonesia, and Florence is going to need some new antifoul in the next few months. So we decided to haul out here in Australia and do it now.
However, being out of the water costs money, so we have targeted being back in the water within 72 hours, which due to the drying time required between coats of paint is about as fast as we can go.
Having your boat hauled out of the water has to be one of the most stressful times for a liveaboard sailor. This is our home being plucked out of her element and suspended by just 2 straps. You can see that the antifoul is in much better condition than when we hauled out last in New Zealand, and we're just starting to get patches of weeds and barnacles growing, so it's probably not going to have lasted us until Malaysia, which is the next haul out opportunity, but it's nowhere near as bad as it was last time.
In New Zealand, all the barnacles really stuck because we pressure washed off first. We were warned that by the paint companies that if you get the barnacles off first, they don't leave that little white, really sticky patch on that you have to scrape off later.
Hopefully this time I'm not going to have to spend 3 days scraping them off by hand. Once she'd been pressure washed, Florence was moved to her temporary home in the yard and we could get started.
We were hauled out a little bit later than planned today. We managed to get the sanding done on the hull, and now we're just doing a bit of nighttime spot priming so that we can get painting the antifoul on first thing in the morning. It's $70 a day here to be on the hard, so anything we can do to minimise the number of days we're out of the water for saves us money. To meet our 72-hour target, we had an hourly schedule to get everything done. Sanding and painting the dinghy had to be slotted in between coats of antifouling and all our other tasks.
Other jobs we have on our list to do here are check and service the seacocks, change the anodes, clean and grease our feathering propeller, stock up Florence with spares for the months ahead, and refill the water tanks. Part of preparing for Indonesia means stocking up on all of the things which are either difficult to get or expensive there. Being in the boatyard means it's easy to get all of these things delivered to the boat instead of having to carry them back from the shop in a rucksack like we normally do.
A lot of this food will be gone way before we get to Indonesia, as we still have 7 weeks before we arrive, but shopping is rarely this easy for us. Now we just have to find somewhere to fit this all on board.
I've done a lot of research into what foods might be more expensive or difficult to get when we're in Indonesia. One of the main things is wholemeal flour or good strong bread flour. Basically anything whole grain, so crackers, which we eat a lot of on passage, and cereals, so we've really stocked up on muesli and oats. They don't really eat dairy in Indonesia, and we really like our cheese and yoghurt, so I've stocked up on a few yoghurt starter cultures so I can keep making my own yoghurt with powdered milk throughout Indonesia, and we have filled the fridge with cheese. One of the biggest challenges provisioning on board a boat, particularly a relatively small one, is where to keep everything once we've bought it. So I've even stocked up underneath the floor. So in our bilges we're full of tins. It's really good to keep the weight down low for performance, and it's also better for the boat. So this is where we've got tons and tons of jars of pesto and salsa and all that good stuff.
With half a day to go, we are just about holding to schedule.
That's 4 coats of antifoul on. That should last us hopefully another 18 months. Looks a lot greener, but the colour changes in the water, so hopefully it'll look better then. We're pretty much ready to go in. Matt's just cleaning up on deck, and I'm going to go into town and see if I can post off our Indonesian visas. Getting both ourselves and Florence into Indonesia is requiring more paperwork than any other country that we've visited so far.
Because we want to stay in Indonesia for longer than a month, we have to apply for a visa in advance, rather than get one on arrival like we've done in every other country so far. We have to get the timing right with applying for these visas, as we have to enter Indonesia within 60 days of the visa being granted, so we couldn't apply for them when we were back in Sydney, close to the consulate. Instead, we have to apply now and entrust our passports to the postal system.
I just sent our passports off in the post when we're in a foreign country. A little bit scary, but hopefully that will mean we'll get our Indonesian visas in a couple of weeks' time.
Well, we were ready, but the boat lift wasn't. Unfortunately, there was a delay and it got stuck doing the boat before us, and now the tide has dropped too far for us to be able to get out of the river tonight. So we're stuck on the hard for one more night.
But it's just one of those things. The boatyard manager is coming in early tomorrow morning to lift us in, and they haven't charged us for the extra night. So it's all good. After the flat-out schedule in the yard, we pulled into Horseshoe Bay on Magnetic Island to take a breather and relax. But we couldn't pass by the opportunity to visit Florence Bay and see some of the 800 or more koalas living wild on the island.
This one is a boy.
He probably had something to do with this one.
After a few days of rest and relaxation, we set sail once more, heading north up the coast towards the tip of Australia.
Townsville VMR, sailing yacht Florence, over.
Sailing off Florence, this is Townsville Coast Guard. Come in, please. Could you please give current coordinates? Over.
Just spotted a little dinghy drifting out here. We heard something on the radio that one had gone missing from Magnetic Island where we just come from.
Please could you confirm that it's just a tender adrift, that we should not be looking for any person in the water, please, over?
We just altered course to go and see if we can get hold of it. I'm not sure what we're going to do with it though.
Yes, Florence, it's only a tender adrift, and there's no people underwater.
Amy got straight on the radio to the Coast Guard to check to see if anybody knows of anybody missing and if there's anybody we need to be looking for. But apparently it's just a tender that's gone missing overnight on its own. So there's nobody in danger. And they're going to send out a rescue boat to come and pick it up. So we just got to hang around to mark where it is until they get here now.
146 degrees, 44.1 east. We were travelling at 25 knots.
That's the search and rescue boat coming our way, doing 23 knots.
So young Florence, we believe we're inside of you. Can you see us, over?
Confirmed, we can see you, over. We left the dinghy with the Coast Guard and sailed on to pick up a public mooring at Orpheus Island. As we were coming into the mooring, we could see something in the water. They turned out to be manta rays, very close to the surface. Perhaps being welcomed into the anchorage like this is due to good karma for finding someone's dinghy for them.
I couldn't resist jumping over the side with the manta ray so close to the boat, but it was pretty murky water, so I didn't stay in long. These graceful, gentle giants are beautiful, and we never get tired of swimming with them. There are about 4 of them circling around and feeding along the edge of the reef here.
They're huge!
They're massive! Very cool. Just doing an engine service, even though we only did one about 8 months ago, and they're supposed to be done once a year with the number of hours we do on the engine. But we're not sure where in Indonesia it'll be easy to get rid of the old filters and oil, and also we expect to do a lot more motoring than normal in Indonesia, so we decided to do it early. And yes, I've got a woolly hat on because it's very cold in the mornings here in Australia, would you believe it? Another thing we've got to prepare for going to Indonesia is fuel, both for Florence and for cooking. So in Indonesia we cannot get our gas bottles refilled, so we've had to buy 2 extra ones, which we've got filled up here in Australia, so we now have enough gas to go all the way through Indonesia to Malaysia, where we can get them filled again. And fuel, well, that's difficult to come by in Indonesia. It's illegal for us to actually go to a fuel station and fill up our jerry cans because the fuel there is subsidised for the local Indonesians. So you can arrange to have it through an agent, but the best way is just to have enough. It's also supposed to be very light winds in Indonesia because we're near the equator, so we're likely to need more fuel. So we've just got 2 extra cans which we filled up, and hopefully that will allow us to go that bit further and just get them filled up once when we get to Bali. A lot of boats motor a lot more than we do, and they run their generators to power their electronics. So you'll see them with like 20 of these cans lined up down the rail. We don't use that much fuel anyway, we've only used 800 litres since leaving England, so we hopefully won't need as much as them. Before we set off on any long passage or to anywhere that's remote and we won't be able to get spares, we always do a rig check. As well as checking the rigging down at deck level, I always go up the mast and check for any broken strands, any wear points, any pins missing, make sure everything, split pins are all taped up and we're all good to go. We always try to do this on a really calm day, otherwise it can get a little bit wild and rocky up here.
We had a lesson on how to check our rig from a professional rigger. One of the major things to look out for is any change over time. So by doing the checks ourselves regularly, we're more likely to identify a problem than having it checked once a year by a professional rigger.
Checked everything on the rig now, so we're all good to go, thankfully. All set for Indonesia.
With Florence all ready for Indonesia, we decided to explore up the river in search of some typical Australian wildlife.
Supposed to be some crocodiles on this river. Not massive ones, but still fairly big. Safe to look at from the dinghy, so we're going to go and see if we can find some.
We don't normally use the dinghy engine when we're looking for nature because it's so noisy, but we wanted the option of a faster getaway if we needed it. What? Over there.
That was all good until the crocodile started moving.
Yeah, I think we're all done with looking for crocodiles.
Next time, we follow in Captain Cook's footsteps and stop off at Lizard Island on the Great Barrier Reef. Thank you to all of our patrons. We really appreciate your support, especially our star patrons, Bill McNamara, Kate and Peter Adkins, and Robin Reamer.
We always really enjoy reading your comments on our videos, so please keep them coming. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to make sure you catch the next one.